Okay. Okay, everyone. You've gotten a brief victory against me. And I'm not gonna try to treat this like how it's anything other than a loss for me. Although I will argue that it is a loss based on the stupidest of shit. The court, in my case, against Sophion P, Initiative Cookie, and TGP 482, has thrown my case out. Unfortunately, he has done so for what I can believe to be patently unconstitutional reasons. He has made no secret that he disapproves of me voluntarily dismissing some of the defendants in the case. He says that he thinks I did that just to avoid challenges, but that's not true at all, and he never actually gave me an opportunity to have my day in court on those accusations. He just accuses me of wrongdoing, and his accusation alone means that I'm going to be persecuted by that judge for as long as I continue to file in that district. It's just, he's basically telegraphed that, and I'll explain why in a little bit. I have here the two orders in the two cases that I was filing. He basically says that my copyright for the April 10th, 2021 accidental livestream is not valid, mostly on the grounds that because I didn't intend to create the livestream, therefore none of the actual creativity that happened in it actually counts as creative, which he provides absolutely no legal authority stating as much. This is a novel issue of law, and judges aren't supposed to decide novel issues of law just on passing reference. So, I have filed a motion for him to reconsider that. I've also filed a motion for him to recuse himself, since he's made it clear that he can't that he can't just hold a grudge against me and throw the case out just on that alone. But then we get to the related case, the second case that I had filed that was stayed pending resolution of the first case. This is where his personal animus towards me and his intent to just throw my cases out in the future is at its most obvious. At one point, he actually, bear in mind that, okay, I should point out that when it comes to the accidental live stream, let me start with some setup here. When it comes to the accidental live stream, when I went to register the work, now, if you register the work, you have a presumption that that the copyright is valid. The defendants have to show proof that it isn't valid. One of the arguments that was used to argue that the copyright isn't valid is that I made a slight clerical error. A slight one. And it's not. I listed the work as a dramatic work when I should have listed it as a motion picture. I concede to that. That was my bad. But here's the thing, the Copyright Office fully acknowledged that, fully noticed this error. It confronted me about it over email, and then when I responded to that request for clarification, they decided they were going to grant the registration anyway. So it wasn't even a fatal clerical error. And yet, when we get to the related case, the judge literally said, and I'll even put this on screen for you, that because I did not disclose the true nature of the stream, that my lack of candor in my prior application overcomes the presumption of validity afforded by the registration of the other videos. Guys, this isn't good for you either. I just want to point out that even if you hate my guts, this precedent is bad for everyone. What he's basically saying is, if you make even the slightest clerical error in one registration, then you forever lose your right to a presumption of validity of copyright in every copyrighted work you ever register for the rest of your life. That is basically what the judge is saying here. Even if you hate my guts, that is ridiculous. Look, there's no two ways about it. This isn't a case of me versus you. This precedent that this judge is setting hurts everybody. I pointed out that he is mostly just doing this. I mostly pointed out that he did this because he was angry at me because because I dismissed some parties who didn't want to be dismissed. This is a lesson, and it's not the lesson that you should, it's not the lesson you thought it was going to be. The lesson here is, judges are above the law, and it doesn't matter if judges are above the law. It doesn't matter what the law is. What matters is, if the judge is pissed off at you, he'll find some way, no matter how contrived, to rule against you. If the judge is against you, the judges are allowed to be corrupt. They are exempt from corruption laws. Oh, sure, that people can file... Oh, sure, they can be subject to criminal prosecutions, but that is literally a 1 in a million chance. And I'd like to point this out. The reason for... This is actually a formal legal doctrine. It is called judicial immunity. I'm going to provide a link in the description for some reading material on judicial immunity and how much bullshit it is. Because I'm not kidding. I am not exaggerating when I say that it basically means that judges are above the law, unless a prosecutor chooses to charge them. Which, I mean, that is not going to happen. I mean, once in a blue moon it happens, but you know all the controversy we've heard about police and how rarely they get charged even when they murder somebody? Take that rarity of actually being held accountable, multiply it by a quadrillion. That's basically how rare it is. It's not entirely impossible. Once in a blue moon it happens. But it is exceptional, but it is even rarer than holding police accountable, even though, and we already know that's starting to finally gain some public recognition that is an exceptionally rare thing, and it shouldn't be an exceptionally rare thing. Judges, on the other hand, it's even worse. I'm going to provide some reading material in the description. Don't take my word for it. So, yes, I've lost the case. I do not think that my case was meritless. I think the judge is just angry, and he's venting. And I've pretty much shown where he admitted to that. But even if you hate my guts, even if you still think that I should have lost the complaint, even if you think I should have still lost the case, it doesn't matter. For the precedent that this judge is setting in his anger, he isn't really thinking this through. The precedent that he's setting here basically is this is going to be harmful for everyone. Would you want to be branded and never again be entitled to your legal rights over a clerical error that you made years ago? A single clerical error. One clerical error that didn't even amount to anything. Remember, the Copyright Office still granted my registration even though they were aware that it was an error. This isn't me fooling the Copyright Office. They realized what I had done, and they decided that it wasn't a big deal. But just because of that, I forever lose the right to presumption of validity of copyright, which is absolutely ridiculous. How many would you want that to happen to you? No, but this precedent hurts everyone. Everyone. This isn't even a case of you versus me. We're all in the same boat here. So I will be filing a motion for leave to file a motion for reconsideration, because under the California local rules, you have to do that convoluted method. You can't just file the motion for reconsideration yet, but I will be filing it. And look, the harassment is not going to stop. Even if I won the case, the harassment and doxing wouldn't stop. You probably would have just doubled down and even tripled down. But I should not have lost just because of this! Look, regardless of whether you think my case is meritorious or frivolous, I should not have lost the case for these reasons. I shouldn't have lost the case just because the judge was angry at me for voluntarily dismissing the parties who didn't want to be voluntarily dismissed. He should not throw the case out just because I made a slight boo-boo in an unrelated registration. That is not throwing the case out on the merits. That is just the judge wagging his dick around because he doesn't like me anymore. He's decided he doesn't like me. Nobody should be subject to that kind of prejudice. But he can do it just because he can. Because he has judicial immunity. That's it. And when you say that I've lost all my previous cases, which, first of all, is not even true, I have won some. I'll admit that I don't have the best win-loss record. Like, if this was a regular season in a sports game, the cases that I've won and lost would certainly constitute a winning season. But I have won a few. But the thing is, you shouldn't have done it, including that criminal case, by the way. Yes, I wasn't convicted. The prosecution threw the case out. The prosecution agreed to dismiss the charges. Against that domestic violence case, yes, the prosecution agreed to dismiss the charges. That's it. That's how the case was ended. I wasn't convicted. Anyway, the case... I do believe that a lot of the reasons why I lost as many of the cases that I did, not all my cases, is just as many as I did, is because the judges were just pissed off at me. Not because my case was patently meritless. Look, I'm not... and that's because he has judicial immunity. Look, it's not... Regardless of how you feel about me in particular, judicial immunity is bad for everyone. It keeps judges from having to actually follow the precedent, keeps them from having to respect people's rights. And when people's rights don't get respected, that is bad for everyone except the most well-connected. Unless you're a multi-billion-dollar multinational corporation or one of the people who sits on the board of directors of them, then judicial immunity is terrible for everyone. We are all in the same boat here. This is one of those things where even if you disagree with me personally, I should not have lost my case just for this reason alone. And yet that is clearly the only reason I lost the case. It's clear that he's just coming up with any excuse he can think of. But that's just it. He shouldn't be allowed to come up with just any excuse he could think of. He should be bound by the law. Judges should be bound by the law. Yes, they need discretion in their powers. But they shouldn't be allowed to just make up the rules as they go along just because they don't like you. No one should be have to be subject to that. Sophion P should not be subject to that. Initiative Cookie should not be subject to that. Sid Alpha, Enclave Emily, Echo Wilder, Cretosis, none of them should be subject to that. They should just get their fair trial. They should get their day in court with an impartial judge. I can't emphasize this enough. This isn't about Acerthorn getting what he deserves. This is about everyone in the working class. Everyone who isn't a billionaire being subject to the entirely arbitrary discretion of the judge who just doesn't like you and who's probably gotten greased from the billionaires. It is absolutely bullshit that judges should have this much discretion. And regardless of how you feel about me personally, you should all agree that that I shouldn't get my case thrown out just because the judge doesn't like me. And we shouldn't forever and ever and ever, amen, lose the rights that we have under the Copyright Act just because of a fucking clerical error. Nobody should be subject to that. So yeah, I'll be filing a motion to reconsider the case, and if that gets denied, which it probably will, because I'm also asking the judge to recuse himself, I will appeal it. It doesn't, because regardless of how you feel about me personally, that is bullshit. Anyway, I am Acerthorn, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.